All right, let's talk about one of the most famous productivity hacks out there, the Pomodoro Technique. We're going to break down what it is, the science behind why it works, and most importantly, figure out if it's actually the right tool for you. You know the feeling, right? You get to the end of the day, you've been at your desk for, 8 hours, bouncing between emails, Slack messages, a million open tabs, and you just feel drained. But when you look back, you think, what did I actually get done today? That feeling of being busy but not productive, that's the exact problem this whole technique was invented to solve.
So what's the big idea? Well, it's a surprisingly simple fix that came from a university student back in the 80s. And believe it or not, it all started with a pretty humble kitchen timer. Okay, so the story goes it was developed by a guy named Francesco Cirillo. He was a student, he was struggling with focus, procrastinating like crazy. Sound familiar? So one day he just grabs a kitchen timer, one that was shaped like a tomato, and he made a simple deal with himself. Can I just focus for one short burst of time? And boom, the Pomodoro, which you guessed it, is Italian for tomato, technique was born.
Now, the real genius here is how simple it is. Seriously, this is it. First, you pick one task, just one. Then you set a timer for 25 minutes and you work on that single thing with zero interruptions. When that timer rings, you stop. I mean it, you stop, even if you're mid-sentence, and you take a 5-minute break. Do that 4 times, and you've earned yourself a longer break, maybe 15, 30 minutes. That's the whole loop. Simple, right?
But here's the thing, this isn't really about managing your clock, it's about managing your brain. So let's get into the psychology of why this simple little timer can be so incredibly powerful.
The best way to think about it is like interval training at the gym. High-intensity sprints followed by rest. That's exactly what you're doing to your brain. You're pushing it for a short, intense burst of deep focus, and then you're letting it recover. This little cycle actually helps prevent that mental burnout you get from trying to just power through for hours on end.
And this is especially helpful for anyone whose brain is wired a little differently, like with ADD. You know that feeling when a project is so huge you don't even know where to start? Well, Pomodoro breaks it down into tiny, manageable pieces. It also fights what's called time blindness, that thing where hours can just disappear. Suddenly, 25 minutes becomes a real, solid thing. And every time that timer goes off, you get a little reward, a little dopamine hit, that basically trains your brain to stay on task.
So, okay, the psychology seems solid, but what happens when you actually put this to the test? I mean, does the hard data really back up all the hype? Let's see what the science says.
So, researchers at Maastricht University did exactly that. They took a group of students and had them test out different break strategies during a study session to see what actually helped them focus and get stuff done. And this brings us to the #1 criticism of the Pomodoro method. Have you ever been so deep in your work that you just lose all track of time? That's called a flow state, and it's amazing for productivity. But what happens when a loud alarm goes off every 25 minutes? Yeah, it can totally shatter that state of deep concentration.
So to address that, the study also looked at a different method called flow time. With this one, there's no strict timer. You just work for as long as you feel focused. The moment you feel your attention slipping, you stop and take a break. The catch is, the length of your break depends on how long you worked. It's kind of like a hybrid that gives you structure, but also lets you listen to your brain.
And the results on fatigue were really interesting. As you can see here, the students who used the standard Pomodoro, or just took breaks whenever they felt like it, well, their fatigue levels shot up pretty high. But the flow time group, their fatigue increased way more slowly. It seems like that flexibility is key to managing your energy over a long session.
But, and this is a big but, here's the kicker. Even though the flow time group felt less tired, the study found basically no difference in how motivated they were or how much work they actually completed compared to the other groups. So feeling less tired didn't automatically mean being more productive. Kind of surprising, right?
Which, of course, brings us to the big question. Should you be using the Pomodoro technique? Because this is definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. So let's figure out if it's the right match for your brain.
I want you to do a quick gut check. Just imagine it, a timer counting down from 25 minutes. Does that idea feel freeing? Like, hey, I only have to focus for this short amount of time. Or does it feel restrictive, like a little box that's going to interrupt you right when you're hitting your stride? Your gut reaction to that question tells you a lot.
So let's break it down. On the pro side, especially for ADHD brains, the benefits are huge. That external timer is a fantastic weapon against task paralysis. Telling yourself it's just 25 minutes makes it so much easier to start something you've been dreading. And over time, that predictable rhythm actually helps train your brain to focus. But the cons are just as real.
that same alarm can completely yank you out of a super productive, hyper-focused state. For some people, all the starting and stopping is just plain disruptive. And let's be honest, on a low-energy day, that rigid schedule can feel more like a punishment than a tool.
And hey, remember, these rules are not written in stone. If 25 minutes feels like climbing a mountain, just start smaller. Try 15 minutes. Try 10. Heck, try 5. The point isn't to be perfect. The point is just to get the ball rolling and build a little momentum.
Okay, so let's say you're ready to give this thing a shot. What do you actually need to get started? Let's talk tools. You know, this quote from an interview really gets to the heart of it. Francesco Cirillo used a physical kitchen timer for a very specific reason. If you use your phone, you put in the world's biggest distraction machine right in front of your face. A simple, cheap, non-digital timer might actually be your most powerful tool.
Of course, let's be real. Most of us are going to use an app. And if you do, it pays to know what you're looking for. One super comprehensive review tested 9 of the most popular apps over a whopping 847 work sessions to figure out what actually matters. And what they found is that apps kind of fall into a few different buckets. You've got your simple no-fuss ones like Focus Keeper. You've got ones that integrate right into your desktop, like Be Focused for Mac. If you're a data nerd who loves charts, there's Session. And if you need a little external motivation, you've got gamified apps like Forest that turn focusing into a game.
But you know what the big conclusion was after all that testing? The fancy features don't really matter. The best tool is one that is dead simple. It has to be reliable, it should take one click to start, it needs to give you clear notifications, and then it needs to get out of your way. That's it. Simplicity wins, every time. And really, that leaves us with one last question to think about. In our search for the perfect productivity system, it's so easy to spend hours and hours researching the perfect app or tweaking the settings just right. But is that the actual work, or is perfecting the tool just another really clever way to procrastinate? Because at the end of the day, the technique is just a guide. The focus? Well, that has to come from you.